TBT Thursday.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this May meeting of the Quorum Court to order and welcome everyone in attendance. Tonight, the prayer and the pledge will be handled by J.P. Daniel Balls. Daniel.
Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the things that you've blessed us with. Give us the guidance, the leadership, and the wisdom as we lead our county tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Judge, do you want me to change? I wanted to do that. You're just going to take the ball out?
Thank you very much. I looked at that and I thought,
Exactly.
next thing we'll have, Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls.
here.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
Here.
Lisa Ecke. John Furman. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Here.
Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Here.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Here.
Bill Ussery.
We have a quorum present. The next thing you have before you is the agenda. I know there's one change of the agenda. Item number 12 needs to be removed in regards to the ratification of a CUP granted by the Planning Board of the Fritchie Farm. The neighbors in this area intended to appeal the Planning Board decision. Are there any other changes for this agenda?
Judge, can I make one
Yes.
comment about that? Before we actually pull it, I wanted to see if anybody was here to speak on it. Not that we're going to take any action on it, but I just felt it was important to know before we actually pulled it if anybody had come.
Well, I've got people here that is opposed. They're going to file the appeal. Yes.
Okay. Well, do you want to leave it on and at least allow them to talk about it and then we just table it?
As far as I'm concerned, y'all can do what you want to. I know because they intend to appeal, it doesn't do you any good to vote on it tonight.
Right.
So, pardon me. They can do that. They can also comment if they wish during public comment time, of course. But
That's all the way at the end as opposed to
whatever the court's pleasure is. I don't care myself.
Ann?
Well, the number 12 is probably at the end anyway, so, I think it'll be, I definitely want to give them the opportunity to comment, but I think it would be best to comment during the public comment periods. We don't need to start discussing things that we can't vote on. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I would actually just like to leave it on there. We'll table it. I'll go ahead and tell them I'm going to move to table it, but I don't want to put them at the end of all of our other business and everything else we've got to do. It is close to the end, but it's not at the end. So, I mean, I know we can suspend the rules and do it earlier, but I think it was on our published agenda. I think we knew it was going to be taken off, but they didn't. I think when we get to it, we allow them to speak, and just they know that we're likely to table it pending an appeal. But so I'd like to leave it on, Judge, just with that plan in mind.
Are you making that in a motion?
I don't think I have to. I guess it's just...
Somebody needs to move to adopt the agenda as published.
Okay, so I move to adopt the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It's left on. Next thing you have in front of you is approval of the minutes. You have the minutes of the April 16th regular meeting, April the 20th special meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or so forth on the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, the next thing we have is number 6. It's a public hearing. Steve, would you take care of that, please?
Yes, ma'am. The Quorum Court has to conduct a second public hearing concerning the implementation of an Arkansas Community and Economic Development grant, program grant for the economic development for Tyson The purpose of this hearing is to inform citizens of the current scope and progress of the ACEDP project, to discuss any changes or impacts involving financing sources, user fees, or beneficiaries that have occurred since the first public hearing on November 10th, 2011, accept oral and written comments regarding the project, and discuss any potential impacts upon citizens that may or will result during the course of this project. County Grant Administrator Renee Bybee and Cassie Elliott with Visionary Milestones Incorporated are in attendance, and if they would address the Quorum Court at this time.
Please identify yourself for the court.
Cassie Elliott with Visionary Milestones. As reported, I worked with Renee Bybee and Wayne Blankenship on this grant. We started the grant process in the summer of 2011 with the application, and then we amended the grant application in April of 2013 to add more jobs to be created and also some more funding for Tyson. So I'll just give you the grand total. If you want a breakdown of that, we can address that as well. Tyson received $834,570 from Economic Development with this grant. They also contributed $10.5 million themselves to the project. The project's scope was to do some improvements to their Mexican Original plant, which included some fencing work, some training, front entrance and break room remodels, and also a meeting space remodels and upgrading the restrooms. In total, they were required to create 88 jobs at this facility to do the taco lines for the Doritos Locos Tacos, I'm sure you've heard, that were made popular by Taco Bell a while back. In the process, we've tracked the jobs, and I'm happy to report that the net new persons hired was 211 people. So that's a report of over the process. They are also to employ and keep 570 employees there for at least 3 years. We have conducted all of our, since they have completed all of their grant requirements, the state has allowed us to quit tracking jobs and to close out the grant. So this public hearing is in order to do that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ann?
If I remember correctly, we were looking at very few jobs, somewhere around 25 or 30 jobs being created, and now, it's created 211. That's great. That is absolutely great for the people of Washington County. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Harvey?
Do I understand this is just at the plant at Fayetteville?
Yes, this is the Mexican Original.
Okay. I know that they're doing considerable construction in Springdale, and I understand there's going to be a number of jobs coming from that.
I do know that the facility here in Fayetteville, she did say they are currently working on a new project that would create some more jobs. I have not heard anything from Economic Development about the Springdale location or if there will be any tracking of the new project down here. I probably would have heard about it by now. They may not have gotten an incentive for that one, but they are continuing to create some more jobs at Mexican Original for another line.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comments that would like to speak? Well, with no other public comments, the hearing on this grant project is now concluded. Cassie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's good
Pleasure to
news.
work with you.
Thank you. Next thing we have is number 7, a resolution. Rick?
Yes, is Alfred, Jomaine, and Charles and Angel here? No, I'm here. You're here for them? All right. Well, we have a resolution to allow Alfred to legally officiate the wedding of Charles and Angel this Saturday, and I hope it's inside because it's going to be wet. Mr. Zega, would you please read the ordinance or the resolution?
A resolution authorizing Alfred Jomaine to solemnize the marriage of Charles Orville Gooding and Angel Dawn Beatty on May 23, 2015 in Washington County, Arkansas. Whereas, pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated 9-11-213, the Quorum Court has the authority to appoint a person to solemnize a marriage, and whereas a request for such has been made as set out above, now therefore be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas. Article 1, Alfred Joe Main is authorized to solemnize the marriage of Charles Orville Gooding and Angel Dawn Beatty on May 23, 2015 in Washington County, Arkansas.
I move to pass 7.1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? With no further comment, Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom, Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This resolution has been adopted. Thank you, Rick. Number 8, Butch Pond.
A resolution expressing appreciation to the Bridge Investigation Team. Whereas the Quorum Court adopted ordinance number 2015-20, directing an investigation into construction of Stonewall and Harvey Dowell bridges and related matters, and whereas County Assessor Russell Hill represented the County Judge's Office and Justice of the Peace Eva Madison represented the Quorum Court on the two-person investigation team, and whereas County citizen Carl Gales, professional engineer, volunteered his time as technical advisor, there's a Scrivener's error there, to the investigative team, and whereas the bridge investigation has been completed and presented to the Quorum Court on May 5th, 2015. Now therefore be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas hereby expresses their appreciation to Russell Hill, Eva Madison, and Carl Gales for volunteering their time and resources to assist Washington County.
I'd like to say, I think we exhausted all reasonable efforts to find someone to come in from outside. And that being said, I believe this team did just as a thorough job as anybody could. If you've read through some of the reports, they did well, and I really appreciate them coming forward and taking the time to do that. And I move we pass 8.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? With no further comments, Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom, Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This resolution is adopted. Next, we go into our finance report. Mr. Cochran?
Okay, thank you, Judge. 9.1 is an ordinance to apply for a grant for substance abuse treatment that would run a maximum of 2 years, and will also have a match by a state, and there will be no county funds expended, and it is budget neutral. Steve, would you read the ordinance, please?
A resolution authorizing the county judge to apply for a Bureau of Justice Administration grant on behalf of the Washington County Drug Court. Whereas the Quorum Court has determined that the Washington County Drug Court meets eligibility requirements necessary to apply for a grant under the Bureau of Justice Assistance Drug Court Discretionary Grant Program, and whereas the Washington County Drug Court has presented the need for additional substance abuse treatment, and whereas the Quorum Court recognizes the need for said grant in the amount of $200,000 for a maximum of 2 years with a match of $66,667 each year to be paid by the state of Arkansas. Now therefore be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, Article 1, the county judge is hereby authorized to submit a grant application to the Bureau of Justice Assistance to execute the proposed project described herein. Article 2, the county judge is further authorized to administer the grant funds for the same project.
Thank you, Steve. I move to pass 9.1.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? With no further comment, Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom, Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This resolution is adopted.
Okay. 9.2 is an ordinance to apply for a matching grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance for body-worn cameras to be used by our officers. There's a match required by the county, and the sheriff budget has resources available to execute the grant, should it be granted. Steve, would you read the or resolution?
A resolution authorizing the county judge to apply for a Bureau of Justice Assistant grant on behalf of the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Whereas it is the desire of the county judge and the county sheriff to apply to the Bureau of Justice Assistance for a body-worn camera pilot implementation program grant, and whereas the Quorum Court has determined that the Washington County Sheriff's Office meets eligibility requirements necessary to apply for said grant, and whereas the Quorum Court recognizes the need for said grant in the amount of up to $75,000 with a 50% match that may be contributed by either in-kind contributions or a combination of payments from the sheriff's budget and in-kind contribution. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1. The county judge is hereby authorized to submit a grant application to the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Article 2, the county judge is further authorized to administer the grant funds for the same project.
I move to pass 9.2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Karen, would you call roll, please?
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This resolution is adopted. 9.3.
9.3 is an ordinance to provide funding for a replacement video equipment for the 8 or 9-year-old system here at the county courthouse. The equipment will match other equipment that we have installed around the county at the sheriff and JDC locations. The quality of images with the new system will be digital, and it will be a total replacement to the existing system. Steve, would you read the ordinance, please?
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $98,995 from the general fund to the Computer IS Department budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $98,995 from the general fund to the following line items in the Computer IS Department budget for 2015. Computer IT equipment, $51,821. Other professional services, $11,135. Computer software, $28,589. Machinery and equipment, $7,450, for a total appropriation of $98,995.
Move to pass 9.3.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Judge, I do.
Yes.
I would like to make an amendment to the 9.3 to have the offset come rather than from the unappropriate reserves to come from the general funds. The building and ground maintenance department budget is about $400,000 if I remember correctly, and the last 3 years we've spent about $200,000. I'd like to see the offset come there. We have expended well over $1 million unappropriated this year, and I feel like it's time to kind of tighten the purse a little bit. I don't feel like this amendment would hurt the building and ground maintenance budget, but it would keep our reserves intact.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to the amendment. Do I have any comments on that? Judge? Ann?
Have you discussed this with Ron? I mean, I don't know what he has on his, it's in his budget. And I don't know what he has, we've got new carpet in here. I mean, I don't know what he has that he has planned that money for. So, I mean, that's the only objection I have. If he has that money tagged or earmarked for something, and so have you discussed this with Ron?
No, I'm in the discussion from the budget process last year. The $400,000 number was not substantiated in any way.
I don't have any problem in taking it. I just think that we need, when we start moving the money, that we need to discuss this with the department heads. I think it does a lot to keep. I'm sure if it's there, Ron would be willing to make it available. But I think sometimes if we discuss things with people, we prevent hard feelings and things. I just think we need to discuss it with Ron if we're going to take something out of his budget. I think that's that's my feeling. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Sherry?
Didn't they say that they had a deadline? So if we put this off to discuss it with Ron, Didn't he, to be able to get the amount that he wanted, we had a June something deadline, so,
Yes,
There he is now.
oh, there he is.
There you go.
Okay. So I'm just thinking that maybe we need to find out as much as we can.
Do you folks want to recognize Ron to come forth?
Yes.
She's coaching. Ron, would you take the chair and identify yourself? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
The discussion is to take almost
The 98,000.
yeah, $98,000 out of your budget to pay for the cameras. How do you stand on your money there? No, like being blindsided.
Well,
You're on.
It's caught me a little bit off guard. I mean, we can make it work for a while. I don't think we can do it and then, expect to get through the year with taking that much out of my budget without me having to come back.
Sharon?
Ron, do you know exactly what you have in your budget right now?
Not
So
right off the top of my head now.
could you give us a close to number?
No, not right now. I would have to look at it.
John?
Thank you, Judge. Yeah, I guess I feel like if Ron doesn't spend at the end of the year, it's the same as if it's in the general. So we're making a determination, essentially, of are we going to appropriate something that wasn't in the budget before, and I think that's the discussion we need to have. So I know Ron's line of business, sometimes things will come up, then he'll have to come up here and ask for more money, and then we'll ask him, well, why did that have to happen? So I think we should just, put this one to bed.
I think on my budget, it's going to be really tight to get through the year. And I don't think I can, no, I can't take this much out of it without coming back and asking later. So it's going to be sooner or later.
makes sense.
Ann?
I think the comment that came that Rick made was that you had a $200,000 carryover last year. So I think that is where his thinking was coming from. But I think that,
Well, I'll just say, this year
I think you should. I apologize to you because I think you should have been approached about this before the meeting tonight. I don't like to be blindsided, and I don't like to blindside people. And
well, I think y'all know how my budget goes up and down. I mean, it's nothing unusual for me to come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning with no intentions of spending money, and I may have to spend $75,000 before lunch. I mean, it's just, I can't tell you that I'm going to, it's that bad. And when we took a pretty good chunk out of it last year, so if I'm going to have money left in there for emergencies, I'm going to have to, I don't think I can take this much out and feel safe about it.
Tom?
What I like about J.P. Cochran's amendment is we're taking the money out of reserves, which are low to begin with. And if you need more money before the year's out, you may need $45,000 and not $98,000,
Right.
To finish out. We don't know the answer to that either. So it just seems more appropriate to me to buy this equipment out of maintenance budget, which is already established for that purpose, rather than taking it out of unappropriated reserve. So I'm still in favor of Mr. Cochran's amendment. Thank you, Judge.
Sue?
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'd like to say first that I totally agree with J.P. Cochran about looking to take this out of other budgets. I'm struggling with whether or not we've truly looked at all the opportunities for taking it out of other budgets, or if this was just an easy, quick solution. And I would have liked to have had a little bit more discussion about this. Are we under some kind of deadline for buying these cameras?
Yes.
And it's upon us?
I think it's June,
Just so
yes.
we could get the,
Yeah, get the price.
get that good price.
Right, okay. Well,
I don't,
in all fairness, we could take it now and replenish it later from another budget.
True.
But I wouldn't like to see this become a pattern without looking more broadly. Thank you.
Butch?
This is $99,000, not 98. And this is very short notice. I understand where Mr. Cochran's coming from, but we set these budgets during the budget process. And now, without giving Ron a chance to look at, what he's got and what he might have to spend, just to come in here and say, hey, well, we approved your budget, but we're going to cut $99,000 out of it. Which, later on, if we get short and you still got a lot in there, would you let us have some of yours?
yeah.
Maybe.
And it may be, I might make it. It depends on what happens.
Yeah.
I can't, but I need to keep some in there for some reserve in my budget. If I have to go out here and buy a pretty good sized piece of equipment, I need some money there to do it with. I don't have time to wait till the next Quorum Court meeting.
And we're
to
going
get it
to
done.
already be taking advantage of the labor of your people to run the wiring for the infrastructure for these new cameras. I'd just like to, in a very friendly way, kind of not vote for your amendment. I
like such a
appreciate
friendly
it. Thank you.
Joel?
Thank you, Madam Judge. I think I'll just point out a couple of things. One is we're on both sides of this equation. We get blindsided with new appropriations after we set budgets, which is where this is originating from. So we certainly understand that part of it. The other part is we all understand that if we're borrowing money out of your budget now to do something that is pertinent to the grounds with the cameras and security, then we all understand that. And if you had to come back for something, I think that was very relevant and was money that had been taken away because of this kind of an ordinance, we're all in context with that. So I think that gives a little balance to this, that this is not an extreme, completely take it away from you, or that we're just taking this money for our own purposes. Obviously, somebody else has brought this to us kind of out of the blue, kind of like you're hearing about it, maybe a little shorter notice than we did, but same difference. Thank you, Madam.
Eva?
Thank you, Judge. I think this is a good notion that we should sort of think about adopting in spirit, really, because we do get so many requests during the year to take things from reserve. And I think this sets a good example of saying maybe when people bring us these expenditures, there should be some attempt to find room in the budget for it already, where we can use existing budgets to pay for things. I don't know that this has been totally fair to Ron. I agree with J.P. Furman to some extent. I've never known Ron to just spend his budget for the sake of spending it. So if he's got $99,000 left in it at the end of the year, it's going to roll over and replenish the reserves anyway. So I'm a little conflicted on if this is really saving anybody money, because I'm not sure it is. And I don't feel like I have a good enough feel for the status of your budget right now to know if you have that much to give, because that's 25% of this budget. And I'm guessing halfway through the year that you're at least part of the way spent on that budget. I mean, I might be more comfortable with saying half of it would come from it. I don't know that I want to start amending amendments, but I just think we should adopt this notion for future increases. But I think right now I can't support it just because I don't have enough information. I don't think it's been fair for Ron. So it could be that if you say that there's room, we could come back and do a switcheroo later?
I think there's room for a while.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, I think, if you want to take it out of there, that's fine with me. And we'll go back and look at it. I think it's very important that we get these cameras. I mean, right now, we're not recording anything out of this courthouse.
Okay. Well, I mean, then
And that's-
if
I mean,
you're
if that's
okay
what
with
it
it, I'll
takes.
support the amendment, and we'll just revisit it later if you need us to.
Okay.
Okay.
Joe?
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I prefer to think that we may not need it and rather take it out now and we'll put it back later if we need to. We always have. And I don't really see any reason for it to change. But too often in the past, we've come down, well, we better leave it there because we may need to spend it. If we need to start thinking, well, maybe we won't need it. Let's not spend it. Let's set it back like we don't have it. Because we can always get it back. We always do. I can't think of anybody coming in here and needing anything they haven't got it in the last 13 years I've been here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm gonna
Ann?
vote for it.
I think, the one thing I would like to do is, yes, I would like to see the money start coming out of the budget where we don't have any excess in the budget, but maybe instead of going to reserves every time we have something come up. But, and I'll vote for this, but, I hope I have the general feeling that if Ron needs additional money before the end of the year, that we're not going to give him a hard time when he comes in here and asks for it. And that's my only feeling is, I think Ron's being very generous and saying, well, we'll make it do it if I need some money. But when he comes back for money, I just don't want him to have to go through a big hassle. Thank you.
Steve would like to ask a question to you.
Oh, yes.
Rick.
Mr. Cochran, can I, to understand the amendment clearly, and so we can draft the ordinance right after amendment, assuming it works, your amendment passes, are you striking the words general fund and substituting therefore the words building and grounds budget?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't have a specific line item from building and grounds, so I'm not going to insert one in there. Is that right?
That's right.
Thank you.
Karen?
Actually, what will need to happen is there'll need to be two articles of this. The first article will reduce Ron's budget by X amount of dollars in whatever line item he gives me. And then the next article would still appropriate it from the general fund, but that is because Ron's money that he's reducing automatically goes to the general fund, and then we put it into the budget here, the IT budget. We got to reduce his budget and then appropriate it. So that's how the amendment would go.
Two separate motion? I mean, two different votes?
No, but that's actually, it wouldn't be just substituting general fund buildings and grounds. We would
Okay.
have to do an article reducing Ron's budget, and then this one would stay the same.
You got that?
I need to write it down.
Okay. Rick?
I'll
Yeah,
do
well,
it.
you're writing it down. Ron, I didn't mean to blindside you at all. This is
I
really.
didn't know I was going to have to spend $100,000 when I snuck in the back door.
You didn't know you were going to have to spend 100,000 this morning, did you? Basically, one of the things that concerns me is that we've taken such heavy hits right off the bat this year with our reserves. Looking at this as a maintenance item for the county, that's why I looked to your budget and looking at that. It had to come out of a capital area because of the type of purchase, but necessarily it's still in a maintenance kind of a mode. You come back in August and give us a report, okay? Good, bad, or otherwise, because we may need to put that in there because I realize that you cannot wait to order a boiler 1 month from now. If the boiler goes, the boiler needs to be repaired and you need to have the money in the budget. So around August or so, when we have the Finance Committee meeting, I'd love to have you come in and kind of say, here's where we're at. I think I might need this much. I think I'm okay wherever you're at. And we'll honor that because this is just something that we need to set the tone to be a little bit tighter because of what we've already had hit us this year. Blindsided, $1 million is bigger than your 100,000, so I'm feeling it more than you are. And I thank you for supporting us on this too.
Steve?
Mr. Cochran, may I have a moment? I'd like to read this and make sure that it fits with the amendment and the second. So as per Ms. Beek's suggestion, The ordinance will now read, an ordinance appropriating the amount of reducing, the title of the ordinance will say, an ordinance reducing the amount of $98,995 from the Building and Grounds budget and appropriating the amount of $98,995 to the Computer IS budget for 2015. Article 1, the Building and Grounds budget is hereby reduced in the amount of $98,995. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $98,995 to the following line items in the Computer IS Department budget for 2015. Computer IT equipment, $51,821. Other professional services, $11,135. Computer software, $28,589. And machinery and equipment, $7,450 for a total appropriation of $98,995.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So now, this is an amendment.
You're voting on the amendment now, Judge.
So let me just see a show of hands, who's in favor of the amendment? This passes. Okay, so now we're going to vote on the resolution, or the ordinance, as amended. So, any other discussion?
Well, point of information, I think we still have to do this by voice vote, Judge. The amendment, don't we?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Mr. Zaga said we did not.
You don't have to do the amendment. You need to do the regular ordinance by roll call, but you could do the amendment by ups and downs.
Okay, so now, do I have any other discussion? Okay, Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison,
Yes. Thank you, Ron.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance has been adopted. Now we go to 9.4.
9.4 is an ordinance that recognizes money coming in from an insurance claim for a vehicle used by the JDC that was a total loss, and I expect an appropriation request next month for a purchase of a replacement vehicle. But for now, we need to put the money back into the JDC budget. Steve, would you read 9.4?
An ordinance recognizing revenues in the amount of $18,421 in the general fund and appropriating the amount of $18,421 from the general fund to the Juvenile Detention Center budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby recognized revenue in the amount of $18,421 in the reimbursement social services revenue line item of the general fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $18,421 from the general fund to the following line items in the Juvenile Detention Center budget for, there needs to be another insertion there. The word center was left out. The Juvenile Detention Center budget for 2015. Other professional services, $110. Vehicles, $18,311 for total appropriation of $18,421.
I move to pass 9.4.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom, Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran, Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, John Furman.
This ordinance is adopted. 9.5.
Yes, 9.5 is an ordinance to recognize money received for the Hofnod grant, Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs. Steve, would you read the ordinance, please?
An ordinance recognizing revenues of $1,950 in the JDC Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $1,950 from the JDC Grant Fund to the JDC Hofnod budget for 2015. Article 1. There is hereby recognized revenue in the amount of $1,950 in the local grants revenue line item of the JDC Grant Fund for 2015. Article 2. There is hereby appropriated the amount of $1,950 from the JDC Grant Fund to the small equipment line item of the JDC Hofnod budget for 2015.
I move to pass 9.5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? With no further comments, Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom, Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. 9.6.
9.6 is an ordinance to book anticipated revenue from a DEM grant for the Wheeler Fire Department for small equipment. Steve, would you read 9.6?
An ordinance appropriating revenue in the amount revenue of $30,889 in the DEM grant fund for 2015 and appropriating $30,889 from the DEM grant fund to the Wheeler Fire Department SCBA budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby anticipated additional revenue of $30,889 in the state grants revenue line item of the DEM grant fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $30,889 from the DEM grant fund to the small equipment line item of the Wheeler Fire Department SCBA budget for 2015.
I move to pass 9.6.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Sue.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'd just like to know if the Wheeler Fire Department is a 501c3 or if it is a fire district. I'm a little unsure why we're appropriating public money to a fire department. It's a grant. Did they seek the grant and we're just the conduit?
We're the conduit for our grant. So.
This is a grant that we got through the Department of Rural Services. All grants from the Department of Rural Services either have to come through a city or a county. They cannot be directly distributed to a fire station or a fire department or a community building. They have rural community fire grants. That's what this is.
So Wheeler Fire Department applied for the grant. And
The county applied for the
in their
grant
name.
on behalf of Wheeler Rural Fire Department, which I'm not sure if they're a 501c3, but they are a 501c3. But all fire departments, any rural community fire grant that they get has to come through the county. We were awarded the funds today, and in fact, I'm holding the check right over there.
Okay. And the source of the funds is?
The Arkansas Department of Rural Services.
So it's state tax dollars?
It's state tax funds, yes.
We've had this issue come up about tax monies going to 501c3s, and I don't know that we've had that resolved yet. Am I remembering incorrectly,
No,
Mr.
you're not.
Attorney?
Madam Chair, may
Yes.
I address Justice Madison
Please.
in a colloquy? No, it hasn't been resolved by a court case or anything else. The question of public funds to 501c3s or any corporation has not been resolved, as far as I know, by any court case. As Justice Maxwell pointed out 2-3 months ago, and there are some stories in the media circulating now. There have been several AG's opinions on this issue, most comprehensive being AG Opinion 2011-195. That specific issue was confined to whether or not we were constitutionally valid in having elections to place rural fire dues on property tax bills. That was the seminal question upon that particular, the narrow question on that particular issue. But, Justice Madison, I would not be forthright with you if I didn't tell you that, in my opinion, the reasoning in those AG's opinions would apply to basically any public money going to any corporation. And as I've said publicly and in the press, my particular opinion is we're not going to have a clear, definitive answer on this until the Arkansas Supreme Court speaks on it, 1, or 2, until the people of Arkansas pass an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution, amending Article 12, Section 5 of the Arkansas Constitution to allow for public money to go to nonprofits satisfying a public purpose.
Well, it almost seems like it's not that different from the grant money that went to Tyson's for that development, and they're a for-profit corporation. So is it under a little bit different coloring because it was a competitive grant for state funds set aside for this purpose? Or am I looking for...
No.
I'm
To the
looking for a
extent-
reason to vote for this.
Yes, ma'am. I understand that. And so let me be clear about this. The controversy surrounding this particular issue comes from the language of Article 12, Section 5, that I don't have immediately available to me right now, but essentially says, states can't give money to corporations and can't use the credit of the state and can't loan money to corporations and can't, and with very good reason that you might understand. Article 12, Section 5 was passed with the Arkansas Constitution of 1871, the post-Reconstruction Arkansas Constitution. And as we understand, I'm not suggesting, by the way, that this makes the constitutional provision any less valid, but as we understand corporations in 2015, it was not the way they understood corporations in 1871. I dare say that because there was no such thing as federal income tax in 1871, there was also no such thing as a 501c3. Having said all of that, if this particular, how can I say that, if we're wrong, so are a lot of other people and a lot of other counties and a lot of other situations. This particular ordinance does talk about the money going to the Wheeler Fire Department. The question that comes before me and has struck me a couple times is whether the nonprofit corporations formed by this county for the benefit of the rural fire departments are separate and distinct entities, which may be a reason to a court might decide that this is not, in fact, afoul of Article 12, Section 5. Having said all that, I don't know. I don't know what the court's going to say.
Well, we know what we often say about courts, but having grown up hearing two wrongs don't make a right, I'm not sure your justification helps me here, but perhaps we need to encourage some of these fire departments to file new charters and become another kind of organization. I am going to vote for this because I think it's not quite as direct a flow as the property tax bill issue was, but I'm going to do so cautiously. Thank you.
Joel?
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'm just going to offer one point of clarification and some of that research around those, Steve. I think there was at least one case where a county did have to reimburse several $100,000 or reabsorb it and go through all the hassle of that because it did get, I don't know if it went to the Supreme Court or not, but it did come up, and actually those monies had to change hands back that had been collected by the county and donated to the nonprofit. So we can maybe dig into that a little bit. I don't think it applies to this particular case, but I think there's definitely some precedents that there is a hurdle there to clear to make sure we are only collecting monies for ones that fall into the right venue. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Yes, Robert.
I sure am glad we're getting some of our tax money back for Wheeler.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion, second discussion. Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom? Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Essery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
John Furman?
Yes. This ordinance is adopted. 9.7.
9.7 is an ordinance to book anticipated revenue from the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund for machinery and equipment. Mr. Zega, please, 9.7.
An ordinance anticipating revenue of $10,000 in the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund for 2015 and appropriating $10,000 from the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund to the BMT 01-15 EW budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby anticipated additional revenue of $10,000 in the state grants revenue line item of the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $10,000 from the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund to the machinery and equipment line item of the BMT 01-15 EW budget for 2015.
I move to pass 9.7.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? With no further comments, Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom? Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. 9.8.
9.8 is an ordinance to book anticipated revenue from the law enforcement fund into the small equipment line item, or small equipment fund for the sheriff community fire prevention budget. Mr. Zagan, 9.8, please.
An ordinance anticipating additional revenues of $1,520 in the law enforcement grant fund and appropriating the amount of $1,520 from the law enforcement grant fund to the sheriff community fire prevention grant budget for 2015. Article 1. There is hereby recognized additional revenue of $1,520 in the state grants revenue line item of the law enforcement grant fund for 2015.
Not 13.
Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $1,520 from the law enforcement grant fund to the small equipment line item of the sheriff community fire prevention grant budget for 2015.
I move to pass 9.8.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I can't say second or these.
No discussion. Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. 9.9.
9.9 is an ordinance to recognize reimbursements to the library fund to the dues and memberships line item. Mr. Zagan, 9.9, please.
An ordinance recognizing revenues in the amount of $8,876 in the county library fund and appropriating the amount of $8,876 from the county library fund to the county library budget for 2015. Article 1. There is hereby recognized revenue in the amount of $8,876 in the reimbursement expense revenue line item of the county library fund for 2015. Article 2. There is hereby appropriated the amount of $8,876 from the county library fund to the dues and memberships line item of the county library budget for 2015.
I move to pass 9.9.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? With no further discussion, Karen, call the roll.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom. Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. 9.10.
9.10 is an ordinance that recognizes and appropriates various grant fund monies for the quarter. Mr. Zaga, please.
An ordinance adjusting revenues and appropriations in the communication fund and various grant funds for 2015. Article 1. There is hereby recognized additional revenues totaling $15,286 in the revenue line items of the following funds for 2015. Environmental Affairs Grant Funds, State Grants, $1,319. Law Enforcement Grant Fund, other federal grants, $13,967 for total revenues of $15,286. Article 2. The following budget line items are hereby reduced by the total amount of $11,035 for 2015. Animal Shelter Grant Fund budget, advertising and publications, $397. Communication Facility and Equipment Fund budget, software support maintenance agreement, $10,638 for a total reduction of $11,035.
I move to pass 9.10.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? With no discussion, Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom. Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. 911.
911 is appropriately numbered since it's for money for the 911 fund. It recognizes revenue and appropriates the money onto the small equipment line item for the PSAP budget. Mr. Zaga, 9.11, please.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenues of $12,000 in the 911 fund and appropriating $12,000 from the 911 fund to the Act 442 of 2013 PSAP budget for 2015. Article 1. there is hereby recognized additional revenues of $12,000 in the E911 Act 442 of 2013 revenue line item of the 911 fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $12,000 from the 911 fund to the small equipment line item of Act 442 of 2013 PSAP budget for 2015.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? John?
Can someone remind me what the PSAP budget is, what they're buying? Does anyone? Just curious.
PSAP stands for Public Safety Answering Points. That's the 911 system. And this act was entitled in portion to provide 911 emergency services to rural areas within the state and to enhance the 911 emergency system and assist in funding. So that's what these funds are.
Is it like software or something that they're buying, or is it? Do
It
you
is.
remember?
I'm not sure exactly what this $12,000 is going
Okay.
for. It has something to do with the telephone system for 911.
Sure.
And it's there's different 911 call centers all over the county, and so John Luther would know which one he's planning on putting this $12,000 in or splitting it up. But that's specifically what the money's dedicated for.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Karen, would you call the roll?
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom? Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Joe Patterson? Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? John Furman?
This ordinance is adopted. The next thing I have is the county judge report. I'm going to ask Becky Stewart to come up front, identify herself, and give us her is this your annual or what is it? Okay, come on up, Becky.
Madam Judge, members of the court, this is Chief Dayringer. He is the Executive Committee Chairperson for the Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority. And we're here to talk about two different items. The first is to report on the expanded service area, to what is going to take to cover the areas that Springdale Fire Department will no longer be serving after January 1, 2016. And we're talking about the northeast and northwest areas of the county, the 412 corridor, and in the letter, with the letterhead on it, there's two maps that are attached to that letter that shows the area that we're talking about. The first map shows some colored areas, but that above the heavy black line is where we're going to talk about putting ambulances, and we'll need to we'll talk about what it's going to cost to do that. Does everybody have that map? The first, there should be one before that. It just outlines the area that we're talking about.
That's the second one.
Yeah.
Second act.
The second one, okay. The second one shows what the ambulance authority will look like once we put the system all together. I'm sorry, we have a different order. That's okay. So, sorry. This one first. Is that the second map you have?
It's the second
Sorry
one.
about that. Oh, I'm sorry. And so we're talking about northwest and northeast. And in total, that area for 2014 had 632 calls in total. Last year, the Ambulance Authority ran 16,666 ambulance calls. So we'll be adding 632 to that total, or maybe a little bit more than that for 2016. So how are we going to cover these calls? So the next map shows the service put together and the activity in this area that we're already experiencing, and that shows the calls in the new area that we're looking at. Anybody have any questions about that? And you can refer back to those maps and call locations as I'm speaking about what it's going to cost us to do that. We've spent how many months, Chief?
36.
36 months now. We've had multiple meetings, spoke with multiple governmental bodies. We spoke with every member of the Ambulance Authority. The Ambulance Authority Board of Directors has approved the recommendation that you have before you in the letter, and that is that we recommend that we have 1.5 ambulances in addition to the current system to provide adequate ambulance coverage for those areas of the North County that Springdale will no longer provide service to. That includes unincorporated Washington County, and that's what we're talking about to you guys. It also includes Elm Springs, Tawnytown, and North Johnson. We've spoke to all three of those other entities, and they're relatively satisfied, certainly happy with the numbers that we have come up with, as opposed to the numbers that we started out with. In the letter, it basically says on page 1, we're looking at startup costs for 2015, and then we're looking at what it's going to cost us ongoing for this 1.5 ambulance. Page 2, the first table, we're asking the Quorum Court to approve to continue to fund the Ambulance Authority at what they're paying Springdale for ambulance now. So instead of paying Springdale 2016 for 5 years, we're asking that you pay that to the Ambulance Authority. So 2016 going forward for 5 years, that's what we're asking that you continue to do. The second thing that we're asking is 2015 startup. If we need to put 2 more ambulance or 1.5 ambulances out, we need to train the people to do that. And we need to train those people at least by the last quarter of this year. So we're going to have to pay wages to get 10 people trained and ready to go by January 1, 2016. So the county's part that we're asking of that is $99,000, and we're asking for that in 2015, this year. The next thing we're asking the court is to look at the financing of 1 ambulance, and in Washington County's portion of that cost would be monthly $2,369, yearly $28,000, and over the 5-year period $142,000. The middle table shows the ambulance and equipment loan financed and a per capita application of what each of the 4 entities' cost would be in paying for the financing of the ambulance and equipment. And so the county's monthly cost would be $2,369, yearly would be $28,000, and over the 5-year period it's $142,000. And what we're saying is that instead of coming up with the capital up front to purchase 1 ambulance and the equipment that goes with that, which costs $240,000 in total, we're going to finance that over a 5-year period to help with the cash flow for particularly the smaller towns.
Becky?
Yes, ma'am.
On the $223,000 that the county now sends to Springdale, they will get that for 15. Is that correct?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then, well, if our court votes for it, then that would no longer go to Springdale. It would go to the the authority. Am I thinking properly?
Yes, ma'am, starting 2016.
Okay, now the 99 that you're talking about, let's go back to explain that to me again.
We need to hire 10 people to fulfill the one ambulance and a night crew that will cover
these areas.
This
Yes,
area,
yes.
starting January 1, 2016. And to have them ready to go January 1, we need to hire them this year and train them.
So now you're saying that needs to be paid all at once, or are you saying it can be paid monthly?
Monthly.
And that's at $2,000 and something a month?
That's the ambulance.
That's the top table on the on your right.
Okay.
Shows the 2015 startup cost, $189,000.
Okay.
And that's roughly what we think it will cost to pay 10 people during training for the last, 5 or 6 months of the year. And so maybe that'll go up or down a little bit, but that's our best estimate. So the county's portion of that
is $100,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We need them this year.
And that will be this year, 2015, the end of this year. And we could probably do that monthly.
Ann, you have a question for Becky?
That's new money, $100,000 is a new startup to train these people. So we're talking about new money of $100,000 in addition to what we already give the ambulance service. And when do you expect, what part of the year? I mean, the last half of the year, how long is it going to take to train these people? 2 months? When do you expect to hire them, I guess is what I'm saying. What month? July?
We're trying not to hire them without an approval from the Quorum Court or some type of ordinance fund allocation.
But when do you want to do this?
We want these people at no later than the fourth quarter of the year. We'd like to have them by August.
Okay. Okay, by August. And that $100,000, we could pay it monthly?
Yes,
pay it
ma'am.
out? Okay. Thank
Because
you.
they'll earn their wages.
Yeah, by the month, so we could, okay.
Rick? Okay. Sue?
Thank you, Madam Judge. I want to be sure I have the big picture here. Springdale has decided to shrink the area they cover.
Yes, ma'am.
Aren't they going to end up then with extra people and an extra ambulance? No. I mean, if we're having to replace the coverage from the area they're no longer going to cover, and we have to buy a new ambulance and new staff for it, then it would seem to me they'll be left with a smaller area and too many people and an extra ambulance. Is my logic off?
They're pulling back into their city limits. So the resources that they have now, that they're providing coverage in the rural parts of the county, they're pulling back into their city because they need their resources there, because the number of calls for service they're doing each year is increasing every year like ours are. And so there won't be any resources there available for us to use in our service area. They're pulling back within their city limits with their resources.
Does Fayetteville only cover what's in their city limits?
No, it's a different agreement.
The ambulance authority covers the rest of the county, other than what Springdale's been covering for many years
Okay.
now.
I was saying Fayetteville contracts with you then to cover the city.
Fayetteville's part of the ambulance authority, yes. We're part of the interlocal agreement that establishes the authority, and we pay on a per capita basis like everyone else that's a member of that interlocal
Okay.
agreement.
So the big picture is then the population of the area has grown to the extent we need another ambulance and another staff for the ambulance.
No.
Okay.
That's right.
And Springdale is at the point for their city where they need to add an ambulance and staff. So the way they're adding an ambulance and staff is pulling the resources into the city limits from serving in the county, and they're getting an injection of resources into the city by doing that.
But they will no longer get the portion of the county sales tax that's for that out in the county.
Correct. And there's no...
Wait, if I may.
Did I say it wrong?
I don't know, Justice Madison, we pay Springdale about $250,000 now to service the northeast and northwest parts of the county, basically the 412 corridor that Becky just talked about. What I understand this agreement to do is to pull that back. But Springdale's portion of the 1 cent sales tax isn't going to change as a result of this agreement. Two different sets of money, if that makes sense.
Okay. The contracted amount that the authority had with Springdale.
Will now go to the authority. What we paid, what Washington County paid to Springdale, will now go under this arrangement to the to the EMS, what amounts to the EMS local ambulance authority.
Okay. So even if Springdale hadn't changed, we would still be looking at needing another ambulance.
No, we wouldn't be covering that area. Well,
somebody would have to buy another ambulance, either Springdale or us.
No. Right, and Springdale...
This is largely due to growth. It's not necessarily because of Springdale changing.
It's both. Okay. It's both. They've chose to increase their resources by changing their service area, which at that point dropped. Then we have to increase our resources to cover that area.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that we're not ending up with a double dipping, but we're not.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
I was going to say, Springdale's opening a new fire station in just a few months right now. So they're going to absorb the ones that they're going to gain. They're going to absorb those because Don Tyson's on the expressway right there by Tyson headquarters is a new fire station. It's almost completed. Thank you.
Go ahead, Becky.
So what we've been able to do is take the cost of purchasing the ambulance and ongoing cost of hiring the employees and made that feasible for the small towns and what we think the county can do going forward from 2016. And we need to amend the interlocal agreement as well. So what the county will be paying over and above what's currently being paid is the $99,000 for the end of this year to hire new employees and the cost of the ambulance.
The loan for
The financing for the ambulance.
That's being shared by the other new members of the potential new members of the ambulance authority. Elm Springs and Johnson, Tawnytown. Johnson's not a new member. Like the county, they're increasing their head count of citizens that were serving with the authority.
Yes, go ahead.
Becky, so is the percentage of people that we're going to be covering in this new area the same percentage of people that Springdale was covering? And I don't know if I'm saying that right. Or is it the same amount of people, so therefore you need that exact amount of money?
Yeah, we need more than that.
Is it because of mileage that you're, the miles that you have to go, or is it really because of population?
It's because of both. We look at where the calls were historically and where we can best cover those calls with, you'll see a dark blue shape.
Okay.
And that means that we'll have the ambulance to the calls inside of that shape within 12 minutes. And then you see the lighter blue, and that's within 20 minutes. And then over on this side, you see the yellow, and that's 20 minutes also. So we took a look at where the new calls were located and what response time we needed to meet to get to those calls, and where we needed to put ambulances to be able to meet those response times. And we came up with needing one ambulance and another night crew in the system, in the rest of the system, to help cover these calls. And so we took the cost of that and came up with a formula for the funding that worked for everybody. So we're taking on additional population as well as ground, and that figures into the response time and how many ambulances we need to cover that ground and get to those calls. And so we needed one ambulance and 10 people. A day crew, or one ambulance 24/7 is 6 people. And then a night crew is 4 people. And so with that one ambulance and 10 people, we can cover these anticipated additional calls to the system. Now, somebody asked earlier about the current system. And before we came up with this recommendation, we looked at the current system. And the current system needed an ambulance in the northeast area of Fayetteville. So the current system is adding in one additional ambulance starting 2016 and funding that as members of the current system.
At an increase per capita.
At an increase starting 2016, and the county will see that. But for the expanded service area, the additional calls, additional ground that we have to cover, that's one ambulance and 10 people, and we tried to finance the ambulance so that's spread over a period of time and just pull the people in the end of the year so we only have a smaller amount of wages and salary, and split that out per capita because that's the way everything else is split out.
And the 10 people then has been figured into the monies that you want starting in 2016. I mean, their salaries have been figured in.
That's it, yes.
Yes. And then just a curious note, did you get an APR on that financing of that ambulance? I mean, are we going to get a good one?
Well,
I'm curious.
We're trying.
Okay.
And yeah, traditionally we've had reasonable rates.
Okay.
There's one thing that we are looking at doing, and that is getting a tax attorney to write us a letter that specifically says that we qualify for governmental rates.
Okay.
And some loan lending institutions require that and others don't. So we've been encouraged to get that. And as a interlocal authority, we're a quasi-governmental entity, and we've had to change our retirement to governmental retirement, and there are a lot of other things that would lead us to believe that we would qualify for that type of loan.
I hope so. Okay. Thank you.
Harvey?
We had a meeting here in this room probably about 2 months ago talking about this issue. And at that time, I was under the impression that our rates were going to go up very substantially. So I'm really excited to hear that we're going to be paying about the same thing we're currently paying. Did that additional revenue come from the 3 cities that were not paying any taxes at all for EMS?
No. What we've done is taken a look at the current system. So the members of the current system are funding one ambulance, one additional ambulance in the northeast area of Fayetteville. So that's going to cause the members of the current system to increase to move from 2000 census to 2010 population. So that will increase the funding, and also to increase the per capita funding by $2.06 per capita. So that'll move the cities from $4 to $6.06 per capita, and the county from $15.50 to $17.56 per capita. And that's how we're going to, from the current members, that's how that ambulance in Northeast Fayetteville area is going to be covered. So some of those initial numbers that were very shocking were affected by that.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Just a curious question. What's the going rate for an ambulance service if somebody were to call the bill that they're going to receive? How much do you charge an individual?
The regional average ambulance bill is about $950 to $1,000, and that depends on the level of care. It could be much less than that, and it could be more. One thing I'd like to add based on that is that the ambulance authority's operating budget will be close to $10 million in 2015. We collect 80% of that operating cost based on fees for transport, reimbursement from third parties, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, and some from private pay. But the remaining 20% is made up 10 to 11% is local government support and grants. And that's very tenuous because we're talking about grants, and we're also talking about approval from local government institutions and reimbursement. So,
Is that all, Lisa?
Yes, thank you, Judge.
Ann?
Some of us, Joe has worked on this interlocal agreement we have, and I know the new people on the court, you don't realize the work that's gone into developing this ambulance system. At that time, Springdale didn't participate and they wanted part of it. So we just paid them so much per capita to cover that area. Now they've decided they don't want to do that. And so we have to pick up that rural area because they're drawing back into their city limits. Otherwise, everyone else in the county is a part of the regional ambulance service, all the cities. And I was just here thinking, I said, normally because we have dropped in population in the county, we normally suffer. Well, we've dropped in population in the county, and in this situation, it's helped us. So basically, we're going to be contributing the amount of money that we have in the past, except for the new $100,000 for 4 or 5 months. So anyway, so some of you may want to get with Joe because this, we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we start to talk about an ambulance service. We've got a good ambulance service, and we really need to get behind this because this really helps our rural people. Thank you.
John?
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to say, I had a question first. Did you say your total budget is around $10 million a year?
Operating costs.
You're
yes,
operating? Yeah, I didn't know that. You learned something. That's extraordinary. And I know you all have done a fantastic job. I know that I also thought we were going to be a lot more out of pocket. It was going to be very, very difficult to achieve this. And so I'm amazed, and I know that a lot of people put a lot of time into it. And I want to thank all the people that I don't even know that have done all this good work. One thing I also want to do, I'm sure this will happen, but we want to be sure to let's get this in June Finance Committee so that we can get this rolling for you, so you can get those people. And I did have one question. I was wondering if you could, if it's not too difficult, if you could tell me how many service calls there are in Town. Can Springdale give that information to you?
Yes, we did receive that from Springdale, and Town city limits is 114 calls.
114. Okay.
And that's for 2014.
Okay. All right. Thanks again.
Joe?
Thank you, Judge. You all have really done a lot on this. I, of course, been involved in this for several years. And it's really a lot more complex. I can't even hardly explain it. But even when we started dealing with this, we was dealing with Springdale separately, applying how they work their ambulance deal to what we was doing with their ambulance deal in the rest of the county. Because they're totally different, the way they run, you know, you have the fire trucks, the ambulances, everything goes in Springdale. It's different in Fayetteville. The counties, we got all these rural fire departments. And I'm just amazed that you're able to work it out as well as you did, because I thought it was going to cost us a lot more money than it was. And I know you've done a great amount of work on it. And I want to compliment you on that, because we were just an unbelievable distance away from where we was when this started. And I read in the paper, we have neighbors around counties that they don't have it as good as we do on this. And we're blessed, we really are, because this is really a complicated deal when you really get into the nuts and bolts of it. But it all worked out. Everybody's reasonably happy. And the thing you got to remember, in all this time, when we changed the census in the county, we only gained 404 people, because a lot of people moving into the county being accessed into the cities. So this is changing. This is going to be an ongoing thing, changing all the time. It's going to take. It's not settled. It's on the right track, but everybody's going to have to watch it, you know, because we're going to have another census here for long. We're halfway to another one, and a lot of things. So, but I'm really impressed with what you've done. I really am. I can't hardly believe it. You made this all work as simple as it make it seem as simple as it looks, because it's really not that simple. It wasn't. Yeah. Thank you, Becky.
Butch?
So it's been discussed. I think everybody's got the picture now. Springdale was covering the north part of Washington County rural area. You're about to take that on. And at that time, you'll be covering everything in Washington County but the Springdale city area.
That's right.
Now, to be covering what you are at this time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you'll be growing a little bit. Just out of curiosity, approximately how many people does Central EMS employ at this time? It takes a lot of people, I know.
Currently, we employ 86 full-time people. And last count, we had 22 part-time people. We're getting ready to add 18 field staff.
And these are dedicated people, and a time or two I've had the pleasure to maybe see 2/3 of you at one time in one room, big room. And I do appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Anything else, Becky? Do you need to move forward?
I would just like to say thank you, and we're blessed to have a very seamless and incredible network of first responders, rural fire department, dispatch, our folks, the paid career fire departments, and the county has supported the ambulance service for over 35 years. So that's what makes us fortunate and work in Washington County where some other areas don't. So, and the results of the work are basically through Chief Dayringer's, Jimmy Beecham, Ron Wood. Mr. Wood came here to support us. He's a member of our executive committee, so appointed by the judge. Glenn Morgan and Owen McAdoo, he's our new financial director, and then Steve Harrison's assistant chief, and Well, there's a bunch of other folks out here that have put in a lot of work. The mayors of every town in Washington County have put in a lot of time and effort too. So we appreciate you. Any questions?
Any other, Rick?
Well, I just want to throw this in. I will support you for your startup costs. I will support you on your 5-year plan. I think the benefit to the county and the citizens of Washington County is very good, and we appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, folks. The next thing we have is appointment to the Equalization Board. I think a lot of you around here knew Mr. Joe Bailey that passed away, and so the city has to appoint someone to represent them. And so the Quorum Court has 2 representatives on the County Equalization Board. Mildred Runkle is one of ours, and Luther Freeman is the other. Mr. Freeman's term expires this year in June, and Ms. Runkle is not until 2017. And Karen has spoken with Mr. Freeman, and he is interested in being reappointed if it is the desire of the Quorum Court. Do I have a motion to approve Mr. Freeman? Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. I appreciate what's getting housekeeping done. The next thing I have, I've got a county judge report. With all of the recent rain, the road department has been pretty busy. We have had a lot of damage to our roads. We've had some cave-ins around Cove Creek. I think there was I'm not sure which exactly highway it was. It wasn't ours, but it was going off the mountain. They had a mudslide, and they closed the road completely. So the rain, we've been very blessed, but a lot of people have not, and we've had a lot of damage. Eva and Russell did an excellent job. But when they got through with that interviews, we had 1,400 pages of depositions. So I think most of you got copies of that. So I am wading through that very, very patiently. I think I have 8 or 9 of the reports read now. As soon as we get through all of those, Steve is working on it. I've got several people in the office, and as soon as we get through with all that, we'll have some discussion and decide what needs to be done. On the Harvey Dowell and the Stonewall Bridge, we have requests for qualification. We've advertised for 2 weeks for a contract bridge crew supervisor. This period will close Monday, May the 18th. One RFQ was received, and a meeting is being scheduled to review this with the individual and discuss the project. If this RFQ is accepted and a contract is entered into, then we will oversee the road department employees to complete the construction of the Stonewall Bridge. GTS will continue to do the technical testing at the site, and Jim Beatty doing the phase work inspection. Once the construction is completed, the bridge will be certified by our engineer, Mr. Beatty. Mr. Beatty has drawn up the engineer's plans for the retrofit of the Harvey Dowell Bridge. The county will be hiring this work out, and the bridge specifications on this project are nearing a completion, and we anticipate these to be published in the papers Sunday. The bid period will be open for 3 weeks, which will make the deadline sometime the week of June the 15th. Everyone received cost data on the Harvey Dowell and the Stonewall Bridge that Sean Schrum worked up. As Sean says, he could not be here, but if anyone has any questions or wants to talk to him, he'll be delighted to talk to you on the phone, or you're more than welcome to come down by the office to go over these. Also, I think all of you have a report in front of you on the County Road 62 bridge. Ms. Madison asked me to have that checked. I did. I got a report back from Jim Beatty to inspect the County Road bridge to see if he feels there are any potential remediation plans necessary. He inspected the bridge this morning, and I have distributed that report. This report states that there is no signs of distress in the spans or the structure, and there would be no indicated problem. So it made me very happy because we were concerned. Yes, Eva?
I had a question on the 62 bridge about the lack of a curb. I know one of the things that we talked to Jim Beatty about was the ability to go back on Harvey Dowell and add a curb. to sort of have that additional safety measure to keep cars from going off the bridge, and that same concern would apply to 62. It's not necessarily a structural defect that would need fixing, but I would really be curious to ask Mr. Beatty about
I'll be glad
that.
to talk to him about that.
'Cause I-
Karen, would you get a note of that, please?
Thank you, Judge.
The next thing we've got going is the Safety Equipment Employee Concern Safety Committee. I know there has been some people talked about safety committees. The Washington County Road Department Safety Committee was the first established in 2010, but it's kind of fallen off the radar due to employees leaving and the county training procedures changed. This is being revamped, and this will include several employees from the road department as well as some of the people from the environmental affairs, because they do some work like chemicals. They go out and do a lot of lifting and stuff, so we want them brought in on that. They will begin meeting within the next week to discuss any employees' concerns such as safety, additional training needs, and a possibly safety equipment purchase. This committee will be employee, organized, and run. We've had several of the employees that have come forth that said they would like to serve on this. Some of them are very excited, so we're going to get that started. I want to point out that County Road Department schedule problems more safety training than we actually have more safety training programs with our road department than any road department in the state. This is a substantial amount of new hire training, and there is continuous safety training that occurs throughout the year. Sometimes we don't realize that, but anytime someone comes in, we have all the videos, we have different things that they must watch, so we are working on that. OSHA regulations say that safety equipment needs to be determined by the job classifications, such as when steel-toed shoes are required, hard hats are hearing, signs are fall protection. We will be looking at different jobs and determining what safety equipment is required per job duties by OSHA. This will be something that the employee committee could also provide input on. And then also, got a report. Lindsay, will you come forward and give a report on some of the stuff that we've worked on? Thank you.
I wanted to be here today just to update the committee on some other things other than the bridges itself that we're trying to work on just to maybe improve the environment at the road department, and also the training of leaders as well as employees. That's kind of our goal and mission going forward. And Judge Edwards and Mr. Dan Short had asked that I would get involved a little bit and discuss, first of all, the promotionary process at the road department. And as many of you may be aware, if you are familiar with the employee handbook, internal jobs within a department, so intra-departmental jobs, do not require public advertising. They don't even require internal advertising per county policy. But what the road department has decided to do, we've collaborated on, is we are going to post absolutely every internal job at a public location. And by internal jobs, I'm not meaning just promotionary jobs like from an HEO position to an HEO2. But if we have a job in the shop that opens up and somebody's on a grader, we're going to advertise, even though they're the same job title officially and the same rate of pay. We want to give employees the opportunity to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to be considered for that, before we look outside or look elsewhere. And so we are going to be advertising absolutely everything internally, and the process for promotion or transfer is going to be a little different than it's been in the past. We've designed an application just for the road department crew for internal postings where they can complete their years of relevant experience, any training they have that would qualify them for the job they're going into, as well as their tenure with the county. And we're going to be doing a little bit different type of process than has been done in the past, where traditionally you may have an application and an interview. There's going to be a series of qualifications that's taken into account, including their performance history, their past performance evaluations. We're going to look at their tenure with the county. We're going to look at a skills test. So, for instance, if they apply for grader, there's going to be a skills test directly associated with that position to make sure that the person that's moving into that position does possess the qualities they need to possess to do it successfully. And so we're going to have a number of things. Interview will also take into account, but each section of the transfer promotionary process will have a weighted score attached to it, so that when we complete the process, we have a quantitative number tied to every individual that's considered. We think that's important because we're trying to get it to a place that if you took the name off of the application, you took the name off of it, we could say this is truly the most qualified or best candidate for this position. And so it is in the works. We've actually tabled posting the internal jobs at this point. They've got several vacancies, and they are not posting them until they complete this process, just to ensure that each current road department employee has a fair shot, an equal shot, to be considered for open jobs. So I wanted to kind of just give you a snapshot into what is going on. It is a work in progress. And we had a meeting Monday with the road department employees, with the entire staff, just to kind of cover the process changes that are going to be coming, give them a little bit of a heads up that these things are coming down the road. And we did have some suggestions voiced by road department employees, and some that were very, very good suggestions, and we are hoping to tie into this process. And so I wanted to kind of bring that to light. We also, JP Bill Ussery, helped provide a means for us to get into Dale Carnegie. We've had 4 supervisors that are currently going through leadership training. We'll have 5 more that are going shortly. They've completed 2 of the 3 classes. The 3rd is scheduled for May 27th, so that is something that's currently in process. Let's see what else we have done. When we talked to the road department employees Monday, I did try to stress to them that anytime they have a concern, I know that there's always concerns that if you raise your hand and say, I'm worried about how this is going, or I don't believe this is being done correctly, that it might have some backlash in your job. And we do have a sound-off system here at Washington County where employees can voice their complaint to another party. They can voice it anonymously on a form. It's not highly utilized, and so I did tell several of the employees down there, if you have a concern and you don't feel comfortable bringing it to your manager, we did open the door and say very plainly, Human Resources takes anonymous complaints all of the time. I mean, it's something that we've done consistently, regularly, and tried to stress that to employees. I wanted to say that because the very next day I had several phone calls. And so it wasn't necessarily complaints, but more refreshers and asking questions and clarifying. And so I just want everybody to know that we're trying to take some steps. We're not there to where we want to be, but we are taking your feedback into consideration. We are bringing other departments in, and we're asking for employee feedback. And our hope and our goal is when we get to the end of this, all the frustration that the court has had, the frustration the employees have had, the frustration leadership has, that we have the best road department in the state. That's our goal. And so we're going to try very hard to work with everybody to bring that about.
Lindsay, will you take a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Harvey?
Lindsay, as far as these qualifications you're talking about,
yes.
Do you have a number assigned to tenure and how much impact that would have on the hiring decision?
We do not yet. Right now what we have is we have the qualifications. We're currently working on the skill test, and we have not put the weights on yet. We will. And as soon as we have those, I'm more than happy to share all of that with the court. I'm happy to share it with the employees as well.
Mm-hmm.
But tenure is something that's going to have a fair amount of points related to it, because we do want to consider people that's been with us or has a lot of experience in the field, of course, first. So,
well, Lindsay, I know that in any kind of industry, especially technical issues like this thing of bridge building and even road building, that sometimes we have new people coming in that have far greater skills in the technology area than some of our older members. And I don't want to put down the older members, but I think we've absolutely got to keep technology and the knowledge of technology at the forefront there and not overweight tenure in this hiring decision.
Okay, absolutely.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey.
And can I add real quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
We're welcome. This is very much in the development phase, and we're looking for feedback. And so if you have any suggestions, we will welcome them right now. This is a brand new process for the road department, and we're excited to see it implemented. We want your support, and we want your feedback.
Lisa?
Thank you, Madam Judge. I reached out to Lindsay right after we had the report from Eva and Russell last week, and asking about safety manuals and whatnot. And I want to let you know that Lindsay was on vacation, and Cassie Wood put together for me a package that we're looking through. And here is a safety and health policy, which if Lindsay can get one for whoever wants one, that way we'll know what it is. Here, there's another one, and then they got the employee handbook, and it does talk about grievances that she's talking about. So I want to say thank you to your office while you were on vacation. They did very well in getting this information. I haven't gone through it just yet, but it is available. for us to see exactly what, and are they following
Lisa, when you
procedures.
get through reading that in the depositions, you're going to be busy.
I know, I've got time. I've got an 18-hour trip to China on Saturday, so guess what I'll be doing?
Robert.
Thank you. Lindsay, you triggered something in my mind that made me want to ask this. How many years do you keep records on employee files?
Well, if they're currently employed.
Present and past?
Okay, present employees, the entire life of their employment. It never goes away. Once they terminate, we keep them for 5 years.
Is that long enough, or do you need to keep it longer?
By federal law, it's long enough. That's kind of how we've set our guidelines is actually federal law, they recommend not keeping them too long. We also have a storage issue. But we've actually elected to keep them slightly longer than the federal requirements just so that if we have an issue come up, we can reference it. But we feel very, very much like we're keeping them a sufficient amount of time.
Thank you.
Rick?
Are these manuals that Lisa has, are they publicly accessible on the website?
The employee handbook, yes. It is
Okay.
posted on the human resource website.
Great.
The safety manual, I'm not sure. We received that from Sean Schrum, but I will find
Okay.
out. And if not, we can certainly make it publicly
I think
accessible.
that's good. That makes it good for the employees. If they have a question, they may stop a telephone call from you. They can go read it. And plus, you can update it a lot quicker, too, as you need to.
Yes. I don't know the answer, but I will find out.
All right. Thank you.
Is that, I'm sorry, Bill, go right ahead.
A couple of things that I know you talked to the employees about time cards, and then also you were audited by the state recently, and we'd
Yes.
like to hear the results of that.
Okay. We did receive an investigation from the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor based off of an anonymous tip. The main issue of the investigation was lunch hours and whether or not employees were being compensated accurately, say they worked through lunch or their lunch hour was adjusted. And so the Department of Labor came in, privately interviewed around 19 employees is what they have told us. Most of them performed off-site one-on-one with the employee. They also interviewed the road department. They interviewed their administrative staff, the payroll people, to see how it was collaborated. And what it came down to, when they reviewed the time cards, they could find multiple instances where, yes, somebody worked through lunch and they were paid through their lunch, or they took an alternate lunch hour than the normal lunch hour, and the lunch hour was adjusted. So the ultimate results of the investigation were that they found that we were not in violation. And so we did have enough sufficient evidence just by our mountains of time cards that we were trying to pay correctly. And as employees reported it, that's how we were paying it. And so.
Did you get through, Bill? Eva?
Mr. Zega's email referenced that they had sort of recommended some best practice changes or something. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. What did they recommend in terms of policy changes?
Really, it's not so much policy changes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
Maybe procedural.
We didn't really
is
have
a
any
better-
policy changes. They recommended just going through refresher courses with the employees on training, of course. And so we had our first meeting that Mr. Esri was able to step in on at the road department with supervisors here a little over a week ago. And we have one slated for this next Friday for all employees just to cover the upcoming, just cover the Fair Labor Standards as it is, how their time should be reported, and to let us know how they can let us know if something is incorrect. That was the biggest recommendation they had. There was one claim made by somebody that they were filling out a report before work that should have been filled out during work, but there wasn't really anything to collaborate that, and the road department staff had many times told employees to fill them out during the day, so it wasn't enough that they felt we were violating anything, but just to reiterate to employees, make sure they process all of their paperwork during work hours. We have voluntarily changed a form. It wasn't their recommendation, but we just thought it was a wise idea. And when they do their report logs of their hours worked their services performed each day, it will include a column where they can voluntarily state if anything changed during their work schedule that day. They're going to report it twice. It'll be on their time card. It'll also be on their work log. And so we'll have two records where they are substantiating the time that they worked. So
Was there any back pay that had to be paid out?
no,
Okay.
none.
And I'm curious, was JP Ussery doing the training? I'm not sure what you said.
No, actually, he just walked in.
Okay.
But we'll take him.
Yeah, we were thrilled to have him there, though. He
Well, because
showed
my
up for,
feelings are going to be hurt because I offered and y'all said no. So be careful, Judge.
and I'll say I've heard Miss Madison speak, and she does a great job. I've actually seen her at a conference, Human Resources. She does a great job. So I know she's not
I
asking
said
for
my
that, but
feelings
she's
wouldn't
done
be
very
hurt.
well.
I just wanted to offer to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
But
so.
it did turn out very good. We didn't really have any areas where they said change your policy, so we were comfortable with that outcome.
Okay,
We are
thank you.
going to do a lot of training where it's going to be recurring just because we want to make sure we continue to do well in that area.
Lisa?
Thank you, Madam Judge. I have one more clarification. Sean Strum is the safety enforcer or deputy enforcer? I don't know what exactly his title is, but yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
He has a lot of hats.
Okay. So if any safety violations, it comes through Sean's office then?
Yes.
Okay. Who at the department communicates with Sean on any kind of safety issues?
Are you talking about within the road department?
Yeah,
itself?
out on the site instead of if Sean's here and the
Honestly, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I don't want to try to guess because I don't know. They have a committee, but they
Okay.
haven't operated as frequently as they ought to have.
But there is
It
a
kinda got
committee.
lax. There is a committee,
Okay.
but it
I'm
got
just trying to
lax for a
understand
few
the
years.
framework.
So I'm not sure the process, and I don't want to speak
Okay.
out of turn. I'm not sure.
All righty. No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Did we get it all covered?
The only other thing I was going to mention is we have been talking with Blair Johansson, and the road department is looking at ways to maybe better structure some of the positions within the organization to more clearly define the roles. I'm not going to go into that real deeply yet because it's very, very surface, but I do want to say a lot of the crews are very static, and they're here one day, and this crew is a different crew the next day, and we are trying to find a way without completely tying the hands of the road department to where they can't do their business, to allow the employees to have a better understanding of who they directly report to, which crew they're more frequently on, and what their expectations are as a member of that crew. So that is in the works.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know when I talked to Donnie Coleman after the report, one of the things that sort of occurred to me was this HEO structure sort of being universal doesn't really take into account that people's jobs are so different.
Right.
I mean, someone who's on a brush hog all day versus someone who's expected to read engineering plans and build a bridge.
Right.
And I understand the practical realities, but there's got to be some way to reflect in our job descriptions
Right.
the differences in those two positions. I know one of the people that we talked to who had a tremendous amount of skill in building bridges from a prior job is operating a road grader. And when we asked him if he'd be willing to go work on a bridge, he said they're not paying enough for me to go do those skills. So there's got to be some way to recognize that different skill set and get us out of this very rigid structure that doesn't really allow for people's true skills to be reflected in pay or in responsibility. So I realize it's a challenge with this need to be flexible, but I think if we're going to try to attract and retain the people to do the jobs we need them to do, there's going to have to be some way to recognize that.
We do feel like it's a little bit vague right now, and we talked with Blair Johansson, and ironically, when we asked the question, what are other cities and counties doing in this particular area, he said they have a heavy equipment operator. So pretty much most cities and counties are in the exact same boat we are in.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's the best way to operate.
Right.
And so we're going to try to take the measures. Very specifically, we looked at graders. We're going to immediately do something about them because their job duties are so different. And just to be honest, that's a highly coveted position at the road department. And it requires a very distinct skill. And so, I mean, some of these positions, we are definitely going to be looking at bridge crew. The HEOs in that level haven't been broke out yet. We did take and we broke out bridge crew lead and bridge crew supervisor with a little bit more detail, but there's definitely some work that needs to be done on structure, and we are starting it. So we may be the first county in the state that has a lot of different roles, but we're trying. And then Judge Edwards has been very much on board, and Mr. Short, it actually was one of his main projects that he wanted to see come about. So do anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate your time. Steve, would you speak about full-time engineer for me?
I would, Judge. I was part of a roundtable discussion. We've spoken about whether or not the county needs a full-time engineer, and specifically with respect to the road department. And there would be other aspects, as y'all know who've heard the Rich Red Dirt appeal. We have engineering uses for things like site distance planning on roads that the planning department could utilize. And basically the conclusion that everybody came to is we might have enough work to get an engineer up to 3/4 essentially of a full-time job, which is not yet quite to the cusp where I think y'all would need to appropriate, first of all, create that position and then appropriate the money for a professional person. The other consideration around that was that even within the discipline of civil engineering, that, and I know I'm speaking when I speak to this bill can agree with me or not, but when you talk about civil engineering, even within that discipline, there are several sub-disciplines and specialties that include things like building roads and bridges, building other sorts of public works. So you might hire an engineer who knew something in the ballpark but still wind up having to pay a consulting engineer like Jim Beatty or Clay Grody. So at this time, there was not a recommendation necessarily to, or it was not a good thing, I think, from the folks we talked to hire a full-time engineer for the county, or to recommend to y'all that you create the position and appropriate the money. So that was certainly a point of discussion in several meetings in the wake of the bridge investigation.
Thank you, Steve. I would like to make a few comments regarding the bridge safety concerns. Washington County has had a routine bridge inspection program long before any of the current issues have come to our attention. We have had the state highway department comes in every year, and they try to look at different bridges at least every other year. If they have some bridges that they feel like may require more attention, they will try to maybe look at it 6 months or a year. So we've had the state, and they've been doing this a long time, so I have confidence in them. And I've only built 2 bridges since I've been county judge, and those 2 bridges are no less structurally sound than hundreds of others of the bridges that we have in Washington County. If we want someone to go out and inspect all of these probably closer to 200 bridges, we want someone to go out and tell us what we need to do to repair those bridges, to make them better, because those bridges were built during the time when that's the way bridges were built, and that was way before my time. So, if we want to go out there and we want to find every problem that we need to find, not safety, but just problems with the bridges, we're going to have a lot of dollars. And I just want you folks to realize that. So we are very aware of the safety inspections on the bridges. We will continue working with the State Highway Department. They will continue to come in and check the bridges for us. If they find anything, that's just like the Orr Bridge. We had a pin that they were watching. And once that pin gave so much, I knew that I could not leave Orr Bridge open, because all we needed to do was one piece of heavy equipment hit that bridge and down it goes. So I closed that bridge completely off. Same thing with the Woolsey Bridge. That's one of the old metal bridges, and so I had to close that bridge. Now the state highway and the feds are going to help us build the Woolsey Bridge. They will do that, and I think we'll have a certain percentage of money that we have to come up. How much is that, Steve? Do you know percentage? Is that 2%?
Maybe more. Judge, I don't. It's a single digit, as I remember.
Yeah.
The county contribution.
When I talked to Sean just recently, he said about 1%.
Well, I knew it wasn't too much, but anyway, they're going to take care of that, which will be an expensive endeavor, so we'll only have to pick up a small percentage. I've taken a lot of your time. There's one other thing that I've had some people to bring to my attention. I've had several departments and several people that are hesitant to come before the court. They said they have been treated rudely and they've been talked down to when they come to the court. I told them that I would bring it to your attention. These are county employees, that they are entitled to the same respect at this table. This quorum court expects the respect. So I would appreciate it if you need something, that you need anything done by the county, me, Karen, anyone. Please show these people respect, because they'll do anything they can to help you. They're hardworking people. I've got a bunch of my people sitting out here right now that stayed the night, and they are there is entitled to the respect and dignity that we expect of ourselves. They've asked me to say it, and I'm just talking to you, and I appreciate your time. I thank you for giving me the chance to do my report tonight, and we're ready. Yes, yes.
I just wanted to say, my understanding of the State Highway Department inspections is they might go as long as 2 years between inspections. And I felt like it would be a good preventative issue for us to have in place some type of just routine inspection of our own, because the issues that Mr. Beatty found on the Highway 62 bridge, I found those out just by walking under the bridge, which wasn't easy to get to. But the painting issue was something that was pretty easy to detect. And as I feel like if we had some kind of routine program in place ourselves, I know there's a lot of bridges, and I'm not saying going out finding every single issue, but it just seems like we shouldn't be waiting on the state every 2 years, that we should go out and look at them ourselves and find ways to improve them and prevent problems from getting as bad as a pin popping out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because I think we're talking about the state's going to come in and say, oh my gosh, you've got to lower the tons, or you've got to close this bridge. They're going to talk about really serious issues. I think we could do more of a preventative inspection to find ways to make the bridges last longer and be more durable. So that's sort of would be something I would ask to include in the considerations of things. I'm not saying we go out and do inspections every day, but I think maybe a more routine preventative type inspection might serve us well. Thank you.
That's exactly what I wrote down too. My question was, road department not have someone to examine the bridges, even a position. I mean, it looks to me like there would be a position where someone goes out and that's their job. I mean, someone really truly experienced and tenured that would go out and just say, hey, we've got a problem with this stretch of road. We've got a problem with this. I thought that would have existed, and that's exactly what I wrote down. So I second that one, Eva, for sure. And the other one that came to my mind when you gave your report, and I've been asked this by constituents, so I certainly want to include it, was could the Orr Bridge not be repaired and not tore down and replaced? Versus spending all that money to replace it, could we repair that pin? I don't know bridge construction well enough, but
well, that's me.
The folks are asking, could this not just be repaired versus being replaced? So I bring that from a constituent that lives out there. It's James Bryan, and they know that bridge very well, and have driven over it with lots of different vehicles, and he says it's better than we think.
The problem with that bridge, and I'm going to be really honest, if you could open that up for just pickup trucks or cars, that'd be wonderful. But I can't keep logging trucks and hay trucks off of it. That's dangerous.
That's the problem, yes.
That's the problem.
Yeah, well, that would be a problem to have.
If I open it up, they're going to run
have
it.
logging trucks go across it, you'd have to.
That's right. And
you'd have to restrict it, though. Can you not restrict it?
Well, who's going to police it?
Well, I think if common sense would be, there'd be a way to police it, even if you just put a rail across the top of it that kept something tall from going through.
I can't give you an answer because I don't know.
I know. I wasn't expecting an answer, but
I will certainly have someone to look at. That doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, and I really think that the road department could create a position there that an inspector. I thought supervisors would fall under supervision of the road department supervisor, not yours, but a person who's actually knows what they're doing and goes out and looks. I tell you, I've learned a lot since all this has came up too, and I've done a lot of inspecting, a lot of driving on county roads that I didn't used to do because it wasn't of any interest. And I'm learning a lot, and and I think they're doing a good job, and I think we're all on the right track. So let's go forward and make things good. I appreciate what Lindsay said too, and my apology to anybody at the road department that felt like that we didn't give them respect. So
not just the road department.
Well, from any department. From any department.
I know that attitude reflects leadership, and it starts with leadership. I have not received any rebuke or chastisement or backbiting from anybody that I have asked to help. I think the Quorum Court members that are sitting here have shown me leadership, and they have shown me respect. And when They refer to me. They give me the honor and the respect that my elected position calls for. They either call me Justice Lisa Ecke or JP Lisa Ecke. I know that we call you Judge because we respect your elected position. Moving forward, I would like to ask you to respect us, and when calling upon us, that you refer to us according to our elected position as either Justice Ecke or JP Lisa Ecke, and show due respect to us as we do to you. And I am taken back by the chastisement that you just gave this court. I really am, because we have all worked together to get along and to work with one another and have never openly said things derogatory one way or the other or belittling to county employees. And I take exception to that chastisement, open, public chastisement. And so moving forward, I would like for you to refer to us according to our elected position, and that is Justice or JP, our first and last name or whatever, because it's respect. And maybe the attitude of everybody will change. Thank you.
I'm not arguing the point with you, but I've had staff members that have come to me, and I feel like I owe the employees of this county that respect also. Thank you.
I agree.
Ann, did you have something?
No, thank you.
Okay.
There's no use throwing gasoline on the fire.
I'm sorry, Butch. Go ahead.
And you can call me Butch. Listen, you brought up that truss bridge structure, and a real good idea to get that into perspective. You know, Benton County's got one right over here across the line on our north border, at the mill.
Yes, I read that.
And to get a good idea of what you need to do to keep up the maintenance on one of those, you might check in and see what they've spent on that bridge. There's one thing that they've done that years ago we kind of got away from that probably helps that structure. I don't believe they ever put a concrete floor in theirs. I think they still redo it with wood. And that helps a lot, because that concrete did add a lot of weight to that structure. Just having to hold up the concrete, so it's not going to be able to hold up as big a gross weight load. But, you know, that's just a thought. Some of those folks that want to, if they started seeing how much it costs to maintain that truss bridge. Anyway, and I thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Okay, the next thing we have is our committee reports. Eva?
Yes. Judge, the County Services Committee met. I'm making sure I've got my date right. Oh, I'm not there yet. I didn't know I was going to be first. Sorry. We met on May 4th. May 4th. We heard a presentation from John Pennington with the Beaver Watershed Alliance. He talked to us about water quality in the Beaver watershed, and particularly, I think one of the topics of interest was that part of the West Fork of the White River, specifically 27 miles, has been put on sort of a watch list as a problem for erosion and things, which of course erodes the quality of the water in Beaver Lake that many of us drink. It was very informative. We heard our quarterly report from the animal shelter. The message there would be that it's spring and everyone needs to adopt a new dog or a cat or a puppy or a kitten. Really, everybody. Spay. Yes, and then fix them. Right? Yeah, spay and neuter. But they're working very hard at the animal shelter right now with the increase in population. We heard our bi-monthly report from Ms. Ritchie in the planning department. And we heard from Ms. Stevenson with Environmental Affairs with her quarterly report. I was able to report that the EFAX project was completed and all the lines were cut over, which is very good news. And we dealt with some housekeeping measures and adjourned. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman, yours is canceled, right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pond, yours was canceled, right? Mr. Lundstrom had to go, but his was also canceled. Okay. Well, he had important things tonight. He had a graduation of a grandchild. And Rick, do you have anything else?
Yes, Finance Committee met last Tuesday, May 12th. Bobby Hill presented the Treasurer's Report. We didn't have our 13th month of continued increase over last year, unfortunately. Cheryl Bollinger presented the change to our unappropriated reserves and condition of the various county budgets. Everything seems to be fairly well on track. In addition to the various ordinances that we brought forward tonight, the Finance Committee had a presentation by Bobby Hill on the revenues, millages, and taxes, which was a good training for our new JPs and a good review for all of us that have been here a while. And we had a brief discussion on getting started on budget controls next month, and we adjourned.
Thank you very
Judge.
much. The next thing on the agenda is number 12. Dave, that was yours, and I understand it has been removed. Okay,
No,
let's proceed.
We didn't remove it. I left it on the agenda just so that the folks that were here tonight would have an opportunity to speak. But I'll let you know that if there's an appeal, there will be a special hearing held, and you will have ample opportunity to talk, and you'll be first on the agenda there. So it will be likely a special meeting. But this is out in the Goshen planning area. It's a proposal for a wedding event venue. This 21 acres, is that right, Ms. McNair?
It's a larger parcel that's proposed to be split. They originally thought 21 would go with the business, but now they're thinking 12. And then they're building their residence on the other portion, potentially.
So the plan for this property was to split the property, have a private residence, and then a wedding venue. And there were discussions about the limits on noise and how late there would be music and whether there would be outdoor music or amplified music. And so there was opposition from some of the neighbors. And when I talked to Ms. Ritchie about it last week, at that point in time, we weren't sure whether there would be an appeal. Some of the neighbors have notified the county that they do intend to appeal. And so this was going to be on the agenda tonight for just a ratification, but in light of the appeal, I'm going to move that we table it, but allow those that are here tonight to speak if they would like to, realizing that they will have another opportunity. I just didn't want citizens who come to participate in a meeting to be denied that opportunity. So I don't think we need to read it or anything, do we, Mr. Zago? We just...
No, what's on what's before the court now is your motion to table, which and is that for an indefinite? I take it would be for an indefinite time.
I think so. Right. Yes.
So we have a motion to table, and we'd have a second.
And I would ask that we allow for public comment. And I don't know, Ms. McNair, if you want to say anything else, maybe you know more up-to-date information.
No, I just wanted to mention that we did tell the applicant that we were pulling it from the agenda, and I do know that he would have liked to talk about it if he'd known that there was going to be discussion tonight, so please keep that in mind. Additionally, we provide appeal information. We provide any information that anybody asks for. So if any of these members of the public have any questions or want to see any documentation, all they have to do is call us, and we will send it to them as immediately as we can. That's our job, and we really do try to make sure that everybody has any information that they need. I have appeal forms and our zoning ordinance with me tonight, so if they need any of that information, please have them catch me, and I'll be happy to provide it.
Well, I know there's some, I think, ladies who've been waiting very patiently. Judge, I would ask that we indulge them to give anyone the opportunity to speak that would like to.
Becky, are you the speaker for the group?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Please identify yourself.
My name is Becky Martin, and I live within 300 feet of the proposed event center at 15671 Ball Road. And I want to apologize tonight because I'm not prepared to speak. It was my understanding after speaking with Courtney and her boss that this was going to be pulled from the agenda. So we came just to make sure that it was. I'm glad that I did stay. And I also want to say to Courtney that I spoke with them yesterday. When they had this last week, it was unclear to any of us that there was even an appeal process. And I only found out about it yesterday. And I wish at that time that they had gone ahead and told us that, you can go through an appeal process. And when I contacted their office yesterday and asked for them how to go about getting that. They did send me the information, and I was told at that time it would be taken from this. I would also like to say that, and I have discussed this with Courtney and her boss, I feel almost as if that we are not being afforded the same concessions that Mr. Fritchie has been afforded in his quest to open this event center. I've lived there for 14 years. Mr. Fritchie does not live there. Everyone that's here has lived there for quite some time. And it's also my understanding that the property is being split, but somebody else has bought another part where they're building a house on. And then the Salisbury's house is for sale still. And then you have the Fritchie Farm, which are planning an event center. And I know you described it as a wedding occasion. It's an event center, and he has said that it will have weddings, birthdays, special occasions. And the night that we're here, someone directly asked him, if a fraternity or sorority would like to contact you for a party, would you? He didn't answer. So that concerns me, because I think the events are far more widespread than he's letting it on to be. Also, in his letter, it concerned us because he said that the event center would be open mostly on Fridays and Saturdays. That leaves 5 additional days of the week. He said that he would like to contain the music, the outside music. He didn't say he was going to, he would just like to. He also mentioned in his letter that most of the lighting would not affect all of the neighbors. So that means some of us will be affected. Mr. Pond is very familiar with the property, and he is, as he's worked on it quite a bit, and he knows in that area that it's the way it's set out, sound travels completely through there. This is going to be a disruption to our community. And it's my understanding that zoning laws and regulations are put in place to protect our property rights. And when I moved there, I understood it to be a community, and there was even discussion that night on how many houses could be on an acre. Some people said it was 1 house per acre is what it's zoned for. Someone said, no, that's not correct, it's 2. But it's not zoned for an event center. And it's also not zoned for the fact that Mr. Fritchie, in the rest of his proposal, he would like to come in a 5 to 10 year plan, and he intends on putting cabins out there where people can spend the night. This is a residential area. Granted, it is somewhat rural. It's on a dirt road. He's talking about having parking for 85 cars. That's well over 100 people, 200 or 300 people coming in and up and down that dirt road. At this time, he is not planning on having a liquor license. However, these people can bring in alcohol. They can cater in their own alcohol. That is a major concern for us. If any of y'all have ever driven down the Tuttle Road, right before you turn on County Road 330, there is a very, very dangerous curve. And when you stop right there, then to turn onto County Road 330, the people immediately behind you are right there, and it could easily rear end you. There are driveways on both sides right around there, hidden drives. It's just not, I am not saying that Mr. Fritchie is not, he's a citizen too. I understand his right to pursue his career, his ambitions. I understand that. I don't feel like this is an appropriate addition to our community. I really and truly feel like that it will be a disruption to the community. I'm worried about my property values. I'm worried about the fact that people are drinking and driving, going up the road. And if those of y'all have been to Goshen, they're not coming there. They're not going to be doing anything that helps our community to improve itself or grow. There's nothing for them to stop there and do. They're just going to come in, out, party, make noise, leave, tear up the dirt road. And also one thing I just thought of too is the other night when he was here, on his plan, he said that he has a place for the fire truck to turn around. What he didn't mention, though, there's an older barn on the property, and that it's my understanding that he plans on having pictures, keeping that barn, and having pictures made in it. That barn is a long ways from where his fire turnaround is, and that's another thing, because if you're having people over here doing that, that's a fire safety, which has not been concerned with. I do want to thank you all, though, for the opportunity. I plan to appeal. I apologize for the fact that I was unaware of the process. I'm an ordinary citizen. I just want to be afforded the same rights as Mr. Fritchie's being afforded. I would like very much to appeal this. We had about 20 people here that night. We also had several emails. There's a strong group of us who are very much opposed to this. And thank you, though, Ms. Madison for allowing us to speak tonight. And I do have one question. Why does it have emergency clause on it?
I think I'll let our county attorney answer that.
The typical process for an ordinance is for it to go through 3 readings, and if it does not go through 3 readings on a single night by suspending the rules, then the emergency ordinance for planning and zoning is done so that any particular CUP, conditional use permit, that is not going to be appealed in the judgment of planning staff comes before us is what we call non-controversial. This one obviously is. So that it can be passed immediately and made part of our zoning map immediately, and that property owner can get on with that particular business interest. In this case, because it's going to be appealed, that will not happen with this particular, and because Ms. Madison moved to table it, and I believe the court's going to do that.
All right.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Number 13. I'm sorry. I got carried away.
Quorum. Nobody else is hopping up, so.
So I have a motion and a second. Do we need to do a roll call, Karen? Okay.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
Okay, number 13.
13.1 is an emergency ordinance to grant a conditional use permit for the Elkhorn Springs Road dirt pit. This dirt pit has been operational for some time and has expanded once before. Portions of the older areas of the dirt pit have been reclaimed. There's only been minimal objection to the planning board, and passage of the ordinance does not preclude an appeal. The appeal period for this CUP is 30 days from the date of the planning board approval on May 7th. No new entrances are proposed, and the CUP does not allow for the quarrying of rock. It is only for the extraction of red dirt, clay, and gravel. And before I move to pass, I would like to see if we have any citizen comment or court comment. Go.
Yeah, read this.
Go ahead.
I need to read it.
Oh, you need to read it?
I think.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I lost.
Jump.
No, that's all right. It's 8:25 and I'm tired too. An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board, whereas the Planning and Zoning Board granted a conditional use permit on May 7th for Elkhorn Springs Road Dirt Pit Expansion Number 2, and whereas immediate ratification is necessary by the Quorum Court to prevent undue delay and expense to the applicant, and whereas ratification will not affect any appeal rights any person may have, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, that the conditional use permit for Elkhorn Springs Road Dirt Pit Expansion Number 2 granted by the Planning and Zoning Board is hereby ratified. Article 2, Emergency Clause, it is hereby determined that it is in the public's best interest for this ordinance to be effective immediately, and the general health, safety, and welfare of the citizens are affected by such for the reasons as set out above. Therefore, an emergency is declared to exist, and this ordinance shall be and is effective from the date of its passage.
Okay, now I'll ask if we can allow the citizens, if there are any, to comment.
Well, I need a motion and a second first, don't I? I need a
Okay.
motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move to
Everybody's
pass
tired.
13.1.
And I need a second. Okay,
Okay.
do I have any discussion? John?
I had a couple questions. One is, just out of curiosity, Rick, why are you sponsoring this?
It is in my district. That's.
Doesn't it typically
Eva
go through
has
county
asked-
services?
Eva has asked that well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
you're
this
recognized.
was the housekeeping at county services that I tried to gloss over, but I thought that people who had projects come from their district ought to have the opportunity to be the sponsor of those, unless, like JP Pond did in the situation with Fritchie Farms, they decided not to. Then it would default to the chair of county services. So the way the county services committee decided to do it at our last meeting was that planning would go to the JP whose district the project resides in, give them the option of sponsoring. If they said yes, like JP Cochran did, they would be the sponsor.
So you're still reviewing I mean, you're still aware of all this. I mean, it didn't just come here, is what you're saying. It went through county services.
Yes.
No, no, this did not.
This did not.
It's coming straight from the planning board.
Okay.
Like they usually do.
All right, I'm totally confused.
Do you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer it?
I mean, I'm happy to do it. Typically, the board meets after, not typically, I think it always meets after services. So when these relatively non-controversial ordinances, which are most of what comes from the board, come out, they have, by custom before, gone through the chair of county services. That's right. And not the ordinance did, but the committee did not necessarily study them. In fact, I don't think they ever studied them.
No,
so
right.
it went through the chair, and Justice Madison asked that the justices in whose district it might be have the first opportunity, I guess essentially a right of first refusal, to say, I'd like to bring it and sponsor it.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that clarification. I guess I'm getting tired too. But my other question was, how many people complained about were there any complaints at all?
There were a
based on
few. I apologize. This was Juliet's project, so let me just look up. We've got the number written down. We had one person comment in favor, one person who had questions but never stated either way, and then we had 6 people opposed. They were in a proximity, though, that led Juliet and staff to believe that perhaps their opposition was to general truck traffic on Highway 16 as opposed to the actual dirt pit expansion. I mean, they are concerned about the truck traffic. Most of them were concerned about the intensity on Highway 16.
All right. Thank you.
Ann?
Is this the Les Rogers?
Yes.
It is, okay. This dirt pit's been in operation for a long time. They're just expanding. There will be no increase in truck traffic. It'll be just like it is now, except they'll be taking out dirt in a different place. So, I hope everybody supports it. We need red dirt. It has to come from somewhere.
Thank you, Ann. Any other discussion? Any public comment? Okay. Well, if no comment, Karen, call the roll, please.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom, Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Essery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran, Robert Dennis, Lisa Ecke, John Furman.
Yes.
This ordinance is ratified. Report of the Eva, your report.
I'll be very quick. I attended the Arkansas Association of Quorum Courts meeting on your behalf on April 18th. We had a very standard agenda report from the Executive Director of AAC. We heard from Mike Rainwater. We heard from Beth Walker in the Attorney General's office about the Freedom of Information Act. And then the bulk of what I'd like to tell you about tonight was just the legislative update. I hope you all received the obituary for Jonathan Greer that Carly circulated. Jonathan was with us that day, all day, and I think some of you have probably interacted with him. He is the liaison, or was the liaison for the Quorum Courts Association at AAC, and Jonathan took his own life after the meeting, and it's obviously very disturbing. And I think there's certainly a void at the AAC right now with his absence. But if you all need help from the AAC, there's certainly people there that can help us. And then Mike Rainwater gave us his cell phone number, which I'm going to give to everybody. That'll teach him. But certainly the AAC staff is a little pressed right now for help. But I know that they will help us if we need help. Before I get to the brief legislative update, I was going to also tell you that we then convened in our congressional districts, the is how we elect the board members. And I was elected to return to the board for our congressional district, and then was elected secretary of the board. So I'm now the secretary of the board of directors for the Arkansas Association of Quorum Courts. So combine that with the fact that I was a reluctant returning member to this entity. But nevertheless, I'm happy to be serving with a good group of people. The brief legislative update that they provided us, which I will get you all a copy of, but I wanted to highlight a couple of things. One is that justices of the peace have now been added legislatively into the cost of living adjustment, so that pay range that we're set for is now going to also increase, just like all the other elected officials do. It's just not going to be as significant for us because a COLA for $100 for a meeting is not quite the same as a COLA for an $80,000 salary, but nevertheless, it's going to keep going. There's no longer a floor. I think there were some counties that resisted having, they wanted to really pay people low amounts. So there were some changes made to the method by which we're paid. One other thing, for those of you who have attended the new JP training that the AAC offers in December before you're actually sworn in, when you're doing that, you're on your own nickel because there's no way for you to be paid because you're not currently an elected official. They have changed that so that there's now a statute that allows us to make a provision for reimbursement for the cost to attend that training. So it may be something we have to do with an ordinance. But I was attended with J.P. Cochran. I got certainly a lot out of that seminar. I think it's good for people to attend. So I think we should definitely facilitate that with that minor reimbursement of expenses. The other, we got a lot of legislative updates, but the ones I think that are most significant to the court are some of the changes that were made in the jail reimbursements. The per day, per inmate rate is going up from $28 to $30. And then two other changes in that area were that this was Representative Micah Neal who did this. The time frame for the county jail reimbursement for medical costs has been reduced from 30 days to 21 days. So hopefully that will speed up the reimbursement for medical expenses. And then the final one, gosh, where did it go? This was for reimbursement from just how quickly we can get reimbursed once a prisoner goes on to a state facility. We were having to wait until the person was already transferred, and now we can do that faster. So there were some improvements in the rates as well as the speed with which we are getting paid. So I am going to give this to Ms. Beeks and ask her to circulate the full legislative update. Some of it pertains to like coroner things that aren't necessarily relevant to us, so I won't go over those. And then in addition, Mike Rainwater shared with us his packet. I don't know if any of you have seen these. He's kind of got these little quick summaries that he does of certain things. This was the most comprehensive packet he has given us. Usually you get a few at a time. So I'm going to make sure that this is available to everyone as well. And if you all have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Eva.
Judge, may I engage Justice Madison?
Yes, please do.
Justice Madison, is the Act providing for reimbursement on that training in that packet, or do you remember?
279.
Act 279 of 2015. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Harvey.
Eva, I'd like to say that these new additions you're talking about, we need to completely update our ordinance for organization of the quorum court. So I'd like to ask that we make provisions to go ahead and address that right away, that we might get that done before we get into the budget season, because there's lots of old data there, and we've talked about it before, but I didn't even know we had an ordinance in that regard to begin with. Second term, and then early in the second term I found out we had one, but it was totally antiquated. So we need to get that updated and keep it updated. So I'd like for us to go ahead and pick a time to get started on that and completely do an update. Thank you.
Do we have any other business to come before the court? If no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. Yes, ma'am. Identify yourself, please.
Yes, ma'am.
We know you, but you have to
Yes,
anyway.
ma'am. I've been here before. I've been AWOL for a while, and I do apologize for that. But
You have 3 minutes.
I may be completely out of line, and I apologize to everyone if I'm confused and senile. But whenever I was listening to the report on the EMS services, am I to understand that they're trying to have the city pick up the cost of their assuming these responsibilities? Is that what's happening? No. Okay. Okay, good. Because, I had a few questions along those lines whenever they were talking about hiring and how much it was going to cost. And I thought, as many people as there are unemployed in that line of work, why would you need to spend so much money training someone? I just was confused about that. So the county isn't picking up the cost of helping this company to cover this area?
I'm not at liberty to discuss it. Now, your comments are for us to listen to.
Okay, well, that's my question, and I'd like for it to be made public because that was the question in my mind, because that's what it sounded like to me, like this private company is asking for, the county to pay for them to make money. And I'm not sure that's appropriate, but I may have been misunderstood. And regarding, the bridge process, I realized that it has been a major headache for the county. It's made the news, and there's been a lot of talk about it. And I just wanted to share, and my concern wasn't so much that the bridge construction may have been faulty, but the cost in doing the job improperly versus properly, because my bottom line in most things is the dollar that's being spent. And I wanted to share a story that whenever I was a child, there was a bridge in our area of the country in west central Louisiana that was a very long bridge. It was probably at least 300 feet long. A wooden bridge over a very deep creek made completely out of creosote timbers, I don't know. And this thing had no rails on the side. It was so rickety, and this creek overflowed every year. So my concern wasn't so much about the safety of the bridge, but how much cost. Because I remember whenever I was a child, this rickety-looking bridge, and that thing flooded every year. And we even crossed over it one time whenever the water was bumping the bottom of the bridge. And it held up. So my main concern about all of the bridge business was the misuse of public funds. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Same sign. We are adjourned.
Ma'am, if you'll